Okay, everybody, it's Shelby Williams Long, the twice exceptional mom, and I am so excited today because I have Miss Farron Slayton Barkley with me today. And it's a twice exceptional mom meetup. It's an exceptional mom meetup, but twice exceptional. We'll get into that. But I'm so very excited to be with Dr. Farron Slayton Barkley because she's a mom, an educator, and she's making a lot of moves in Middle Georgia to help babies like ours. And I'm so excited for her to have the opportunity to talk to me and everybody else about it. I was so lucky to meet her at a Microschool event last year. And we've just gotten to know each other little by little. And it's always amazing to meet another mom who's passionate, especially about our exceptional kids, particularly we're both autism moms. Um, and our kids are about the same age. So it's just been a really, really good experience getting to know one another and supporting one another. And one of the things I want to do is talk about one of the organizations we've worked with together, which is Georgia Can, and also talk about her background with them. But I also have to give you guys her amazing bio. This lady is impressive, y'all. I just love all the things. I love to see a Black woman winning, and she is definitely that. But Dr. Farron Slayton Barkley is the founder of the Rising Scholars Collective. She is a bilingual veteran educator. Which language is that? Spanish, right? Yes, Spanish. Hola. She's an educational consultant and advocate with a career dedicated to empowering students and creating inclusive learning environments. A graduate of Cornell University and Ivy League Institute located in Ithaca, New York. She also holds a PhD from Clark Atlanta University, along with a master's degree from the Universidad de Granada, Spain, and Western New Mexico University. Her leadership is deeply shaped by her experience as a fellow in the New Leaders Program, which emphasizes transformational leadership for equity and inclusion, guiding her work with both educators and students. She's also been influenced by her experiences of parenting children who are both gifted and disabled, a population known as twice exceptional, to help them navigate educational systems. She served as a parent fellow with Georgia Can for the 24-25 school year for Middle Georgia, and through her company, the Rising Scholars Collective, she is partnered to design and implement inclusive programming across Middle Georgia to include two school choice fairs for Middle Georgia in partnership with the Tubman African American Museum, Middle Georgia State University, and the National Association for School Choice. Her organization has also hosted two disability fairs for her region in partnership with Centenary Church in Macon. Committed to equity, resilience, and student empowerment, Dr. Slayton Barkley continues to drive meaningful impact in education through both direct teaching and systemic advocacy to include creating and empowering women, edupreneurs, so educational entrepreneurs, to create learning spaces for children who need alternatives outside of traditional school systems. And I'm sorry, I'm like getting tongue tied. It's just so much. And I mean, I love it all. Farron, you know how I feel about you. You know how I feel about the work that you do. It's just inspirational. It's much needed in our area. We've had a lot of heart to hearts about our babies and what we want to see for them, as children, but especially as Black males with autism, and what we want to see for them moving forward. And I think you're doing an amazing job making sure that people are aware of all the opportunities they have in Middle Georgia for educating children like ours. And, some other children maybe would have different backgrounds, but, similar challenges. So I'm super excited to talk to you today. First, I would like to hear about your fellowship with Georgia Can and then how it led into this amazing space that we're going to get into with your upcoming school choice fair.
Well, thank you, Shelby. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here and having this interview and talking about some very, very important and impactful content areas that needs to be discussed and children who need to be supported. So during the 24-25 school year, I was a Georgia Can Fellow for Middle Georgia, which meant that I was in charge of making programming and talking to parents and getting parents out to understand that their slogan is every child deserves a good school. And a great teacher. So that was my job. I had panel discussions. I helped open houses for smaller schools. I talked to parents, invited them out, did some programming, just getting Georgia Can out and about in our area to let parents know, what's available, where they can go to for different types of support. So that was a good advocacy experience, because they do teach you all the way from grassroots in your community all the way going down to Capitol in Atlanta, being able to talk to your legal representatives and your legislative representatives about just any issues that you're having as in regards to your children, and what services are out there for them and what opportunities are out there. So that was a really good ground roots training in the education field in Middle Georgia. Having been a veteran educator and coming from another area with nonprofit work experience, I came with worked in immigration before the legal part of that. So just working with people and advocating and supporting them and trying to get them the best that they, just give them as much as you can give them. That's really where my heart lies. So this was a natural transformation. So that gave me the foundation in our area. And from that, I launched a school choice fair last year. And I had a
And
panel.
it was amazing last year. And I know it's going to be even bigger and better this year. I'm just excited about it.
Thank you. Yeah, we've grown. I think I had maybe 8 organizations the first year. And this year we're over 30. So we're grown. We're all over the museum. We have 5 different locations in the museum. We have activities for families. We have a mascot coming. So it's student performances, and just thinking of all the different type of students, from your gifted to your athletic to your students who need supervision after school to your kids who prefer virtual learning. I mean, try to really,
Literally
yes,
what choice is.
exactly.
And we've taught, and I know you and I both are, we're in the public school system, we're educators, we educate, all types of children, different backgrounds, everything. And I think it's just important to explain, like you talked about, like public school is a school choice.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of people do, make the mistake of thinking, well, if we're talking school choice and we're talking charter or we're talking private only, talk to me about how public school is a school choice,
Right.
and then the date and time of your event, and then some things we can expect to see.
So school choice is any choice that you make for your child. If anybody's ever registered their child in public school, you have to have paperwork. If it's an online
Lots.
portal, so it's work. It's not just showing up, to the school. So that is a school choice. I want my child in their neighborhood school. Some parents don't want the school attached to their address. They want the school across the town, and that's called an interdistrict transfer. And so that is
Right.
school choice. I do not want my neighborhood school. I want the other neighborhood school that's not in my neighborhood. If you
Exactly.
have a district that has a magnet school, that is school choice because you have to apply. That's not based on your address. So that is another school choice that parents make. And then some districts, definitely after COVID, continued with their virtual schools. So that is a school choice that I want to be in my district. I just don't want to go face to face. I want my child to have the option to learn online. So there's all sorts of modules. I think too, people forget with charter schools, those are public schools.
Yes,
They're
they
funded
are.
by public, just like a private school. I'm sorry, like a public school, the traditional public school. So yeah, those are all school choices. And the majority of students in the state of Georgia and nationwide are public school students. And we're talking over 85%.
So over
And
85% of the
over.
kids are in public school. So
Yeah.
people are still choosing public schools.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for me as a parent, I choose my local public school. It's in my neighborhood. I'm very satisfied with it, but I'm also of the mind that it's good to know there are options out there, especially with my son having autism and needing different supports. He's lucky he's able to get what he needs at his current school, but um and I know, can you make sure you tell everybody the date and time and location of your event? And
Right.
I'm going to make sure I put it in everything too, but I just want you to be able to say it a few times to make sure it sticks in there.
So we are lucky in Middle Georgia. We have a 2-week celebration. And traditionally with the National School Choice Awareness Foundation, it's a 1-week national celebration, but ours is 2 weeks in Middle Georgia. And we have 2 weeks that precede the culmination event, which is the school choice fair. So the actual school choice fair is going to take place at the Tubman African American Museum in Macon, Georgia, and it's on Saturday, February 7th, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's free. It's open to the public. It's for anybody who has a vested interest in the education of their children, no matter what mode. We have some homeschool communities coming out. We have some private schools. We have public schools. We have magnet schools. We have some wraparound services. We have.
So, but before we
Mhm,
go back past there, because I know
mhm.
we know all the terminology because we're in education. Can you make sure that people understand, explain the difference between, you went into magnet school a little bit about that being your choice, and even a little bit into charter, but can you explain like some of the difference between the types of schools that will be there, magnet, charter, micro, and private?
Right. So your public schools that are paid for by public dollars are your neighborhood public schools. And then also, if you do have a charter school, that is a public school.
And
Um,
so some of our local charter schools would be Cirrus and it would be ACE.
yes.
Okay.
And we do have, coming to the fair, we have two charter schools who are proposing to open in Macon, who will be coming
Okay.
to talk about their projects and what they're proposing. Private schools are usually tuition based and they are paid for by parents or grants or wherever they're receiving their money, but it is not a school that is covered by public tuition, public funds. So we have quite a few private schools, and we do have some coming to the fair. And then you have your micro schools, and those are just smaller private schools. They can be anywhere from 5 to 250 students. It's really based on the number, but it's generally a private institution, and they
And
can
they
be
can be
small.
located in different places too,
Mhm.
like the
They can be
micro schools.
churches,
Like
yeah.
it could be
A
a
house.
home, it
Hmm.
could be somebody's home,
Yep.
it could be a church.
Yep.
It just depends on those different types of things.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned like micro schools and the private schools, those are tuition based
Hmm.
versus the magnet and charter, which are, already paid for through public tax
Right.
funds.
Right.
So, and affordability is often an issue.
Yes.
I know a lot of people talk about the Georgia Promise Scholarship.
Hmm.
What could you tell people about the Georgia Promise Scholarship and how those funds could be used?
So, in the state of Georgia, our governor signed off on the Georgia Promise Scholarship, which is basically to give families who are in schools who are having some academic difficulties, and their measurement and how they measure it is not necessarily, if it's just a CCRPI or how they come up with the list, but they come up with a list. And if your school's on that list, then you qualify to ask the state to remove your child from your public school. And this is statewide. And you can choose to put them in a private school or a micro school, or you can homeschool them. And that money doesn't directly go to the family. I've had parents think that the money goes to them. It does not. It's held within an account, and you can make
So
purchases.
if you
For
thought you
example,
were just going to say, I'm
no,
homeschooling and sit
no,
on that check, that's
no.
not what's happening.
It's for
That's not what's happening.
approved curriculum. You have an account, and you can pick what they've put on the marketplace, and that's where the $6,500 goes. $500 you can use for transportation, um, which I've learned is $500 for Uber or some of the third party,
A
transportation.
lift.
Right. So I don't know how far that goes, but that's currently where it stands. Or you can choose a school that has agreed and has been accepted to receive the Georgia Promise Scholarship to take your child out of their public school.
Okay. And so, and I know there is the Georgia Promise Scholarship like you just described,
Mhm.
but there also is like when I know you mentioned like wraparound services. So that made me think about the Georgia Special Needs Scholarship. It is
Mhm.
slightly different, right?
So, and I will go back to the Georgia Promise Scholarship. You can have, for example, there's speech therapists, there's some other service providers on the Georgia Promise Scholarship. If you're homeschool, um, most of the homeschool families use it for to pay for some of those services. I'm not necessarily sure how all that works, but they are allowed to be in the marketplace for that. And so the Georgia Special Needs Scholarship preceded the Georgia Promise, and you can only pick one. You can't do both. But if your
Okay.
child has an IEP or a 504, or your child was in pre-K and identified, then you can ask the state of Georgia to pay for their private school. Now, with the Georgia Special Needs Scholarship, the school has to be approved by the state of Georgia. And it's only, they have to meet some rigorous requirements to be able to take those students and get paid by the state of Georgia for their tuition. Mm-hmm.
And I do want to just make sure that everybody who's watching understands, like, again, we speak teacher ease, some of the acronyms. So when we talk about an IEP, we're talking about an individualized education plan, or sometimes people refer to it as a program. So it's for children who have a special need. It may be autism, it may be a speech language issue.
Right.
There's a wide variety of disabilities that are covered under IEP. But basically the IEP goes to make sure that they are able to still receive an education regardless of that. And the 504 plan is somewhat similar, but a child can have both. The 504 plan is more medical based. So let's say you have a child who's diagnosed with ADHD and the doctor writes a note saying they need, extended time. They might need more breaks, something like that. Those are the types of things that may be in a 504 plan, or it could even be with IEPs and 504 plans. Those are the ones that would be eligible for the Georgia Special Needs Scholarship, but they can only use one or the other, either the Georgia Special
Exactly.
Needs Scholarship or the Georgia Promise. And that's
Exactly.
my understanding too. I think the Special Needs Scholarship is more money than the 6,500
It
that people
depends.
get with the
It
Promise.
really depends on your child's plan. So it
Okay.
depends on the services they need. I mean, it can go from like $2,000. There's, for students usually on a 504 plan, not always, but that have lesser services. And the services that they need are categorized by the state of Georgia. And they decide, category 1, category 2, category 3. They have their own formula. And it can go all the way up, to $12,000, $13,000, $14,000, $15,000 a year. So it really depends on the child's need to see how much that will be for them to be able to go to a private school.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So then I have a couple of different things. I think I want to get into I'll start in the familiar territory for our viewers first, and then I'll back it up into what may be a little bit more unfamiliar.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about charter schools and magnet schools, and that the fact that both of those are publicly funded. What
Mm-hmm.
can parents get at a charter school or a magnet school that maybe they wouldn't be able to get from their zone school? Like, what distinguishes them from a
Mm-hmm.
typical, elementary, middle, or high school? That's
Right. So it really depends on what you have available in your community. Some parents will look at a charter school because it offers a specialized program. I know in our community, we have STEM, and we also have college prep.
Mhm.
So if a parent's wanting their children to go in that area, then they might start to look at them. It also may be smaller classroom size. Sometimes parents, depending on the needs of their children, will consider, another type of schooling because they want their child not to have as many people in the classroom. It
Mhm.
could be location. Sometimes between work and house and, a school might be closer to something else that they want. So it really depends on the needs of the child and the ability of the parents, because most charter schools do not come with transportation. So that is something to consider when you're choosing a school, because public school does. Most charter schools do not.
Right. So and so then that also could lead to questions about equity and access.
Build charter schools, for example, in locations where they have access to public transportation. So
Hmm.
sometimes, especially for the older kids, that's something to consideration. Where in the city, if a parent does not have a car or transportation during the day, could the child access? Are we close to a bus line? So even though charter schools may not have traditional buses, sometimes when founders are engineering schools, these are the things that they think about for location.
Right.
Some charter schools, and I'm not talking about Middle Georgia yet, they will have van service, and they will
Right.
allow a parent to drop them off at a hub, and then the school will pay for the van to pick them up from that hub. So it just depends on the intentions of the founder, where their heart truly lies for the children in their city, and what's available for the children. I always tell parents, don't overlook charter school founders who found schools near public transportation because of
Right.
transportation.
It's because they're providing access. They're trying to
Exactly.
give people access.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I've been in Macon now for about 20 years, a little over 20 years. And I remember initially there was busing for kids at the magnet schools, and then at one point that stopped. I think it, kind of was like underutilized. I know we've kind of gone through the weeds about the difference between charter schools, with them having they have their own mission, their own vision, and
Mhm.
typically their own specialization of what they want to do. When the magnet schools, again, they're going to be under the public school umbrella for the local public school, but they may have like a focus like the arts, sciences, something that distinguishes them from the other schools a little bit. But micro schools, I know for me, like I had heard of like pods and pod schools, and and definitely even thought about that during the pandemic a good amount as a teacher. But I wonder, like, for people who are considering micro schools, because the rules and regulations are a bit different when you get into the weeds of like how one would begin a micro school and be a micro school operator, or founder is what they typically are calling themselves. So when we're looking at those types of things, what are the credentials that parents should be looking for when we're considering? Because when students attend a public school, like for example, somebody can look me up. My certificate is on there. I'm sure your certificate is on there. Like my credentials are there. So how can parents check the credentials, teaching licensure, background of operators of magnet schools, um, charter schools, or even homeschool pods?
And I think the question is a good question. And I think the first thing before answering it is to think that when we're talking about, student performance, student outcomes, it's not a one point information. It's not just like,
Hmm.
if you're certified, you're great. It doesn't work that way.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I'm well
So
aware.
yeah, right. So, so when we're talking
Yeah.
about like credentialing, so it has to be more of an open conversation because one point of data isn't going to give you the answer that you need. With a magnet school and a charter school, since they are public school institutions, they still have the teacher certification rules of your traditional public school. They still have to have at least a bachelor's degree unless they're like in the career field, and there's a difference for that. But parents should also know that, school systems, charter schools, its own district, can ask the
Hmm.
state for a waiver, for
Hmm.
teacher certification, where they're not having to traditionally 3 years. If you came in and you're a waiver teacher, you had 3 years. But due to a lot of different things, districts can ask for waivers from that requirement. So you will still have teachers in any public school in any state in Georgia, who may or may not have continued all of their certification at the public school level. There are many founders of Microschool who are public school teachers or former public school teachers, and they still keep their license. One of
Right.
the things with the Georgia Promise Scholarship, educators can register with them to offer homeschool students tutoring, but you have to be a licensed, you have to be a certified teacher. So you will have
Hmm.
Microschool founders who are coming from the public school system, wherever they're at, and they will open their own microschool and they still have their license and they still keep that license up. So there is a way, and the teacher licenses are controlled by the Georgia Professionals Commission, which make
Professional Standards Commission.
yeah, I'm sorry, the Standards
Hmm.
Commission that will allow them to be able to look them up. It is not required though, to open in a micro school setting or a pod school to be certified teacher, because the state of Georgia, with the act that they signed in 2021, they don't consider them schools. So it's the idea of like you're homeschooling your student, and then you're
Right.
going to this person to lead some type of educational experience that you're not able to give, because with homeschool the parent is the teacher and they don't have to have certification. And then the idea of a homeschool or a micro school is that you're then going to some expert, who will give a lesson that you're not able to give, but you're still the parent is still the teacher. So there is very much flexibility in that. If any parent is concerned about that, that is something that has to be, open conversations, just as you would
Right.
with any institution. Experience to me is important, when shopping for education for my children. Not necessarily, I want to know. I think what traditional certification does is it makes sure that the instructor has tools in order to teach different brains. It's the idea of you have information and you understand that some students learn this way, some students don't. It's the pedagogy part is as opposed to just the content. I
Right.
won't say being a parent of a child at a microschool, and that's the thing about school choice. I do have an elementary age child, and he's been through 4 different types of education in his young
Yeah.
life, because that's what school choice is trying to find that fit for him. So he's had, private, microschool, public, like he's virtual. He's done a myriad of educational experiences. So I think when parents are shopping, you have to get multiple points of data. Is this the right
Can
environment?
I touch on something that you
Mm-hmm,
just said?
mm-hmm,
I really like the fact that you were saying that your son has experienced all these different types of schools because it was about him
mm-hmm,
and it was about what works best for him.
mm-hmm,
Because there seems to be like an I want to call it an undercurrent, but I feel like it's like more prevalent than that of looking at children, like as educators, you and I, we see sweet little faces. We have the human touch, like we're still in there. But a lot of times when people are speaking about education, educational policies, it's very much about data points and dollar signs.
mm-hmm,
And I think, to reduce children to that is really missing a huge point. And I
mm-hmm,
think even, sometimes people politicizing the conversation that we're having even about school choice is because they're breaking it down into dollar signs particularly, but also data points. But, we are given heavy responsibilities and tasks as parents, especially parents of exceptional children and with particular needs and who are being perceived a certain way because of different diagnoses. Um, and we have an obligation to them to make sure that they are safe, to make sure that they are comfortable, and that they are with adults who understand them, who also see that they have potential to learn just as a neurotypical child
mm-hmm.
can learn. And so the conversation is often treated as like, well, if you're saying that you would send your child to this type of school, well, then you're really not a public school advocate. Or if you're saying you put your child in this program, you're really not supportive of a public school. I think that's just like it's simply untrue. It's simply
I mean, when we say one is another, it simplifies the situation. And even talking to parents and community leaders and just people along the way, there's as parents, we have not been through the generational differences that this generation goes through. Like, I
absolutely
was a public school child. I graduated from public school. There
same.
really weren't, any
Yeah.
really options. There were a couple of private schools, but my public school was fine. And it worked for me. There'll be times that, depending on health, background, some students are out of school because they're in and out of the hospital. I mean, there's all
Right.
kinds of different needs in school choice. Whatever we choose, definitely is about the child first. It's in one system, I don't care what system, cannot serve all the children. No one thing for everybody. It just doesn't work that way.
Mhm.
And then I think it has to give reverence. Some people are very black and white with the topic. So they think, I
Very
choose this
much.
school and it's this forever. And it doesn't work that way. If you're in the community of parents having to make a choice, most people are making choices because they don't have a choice. What they're doing is not working. And that goes both ways, of private to public. I've ran into private school families, generationally private school families, and they had a child. They're usually
It just did not
neurodivergent,
work for them.
and that school would not budge on the traditional model. They're just like, this isn't going to work. And so those parents are devastated because in their family, they're a private school family, and that child does not fit that mold. And now they're being forced to consider another alternative, besides what in their family was the norm, and vice versa for public school, public school, and it's not working, and it's not there's no one way, there's no one community. This is all throughout the nation. This generation is different. Technology, the demands, the reading demands, the information demands on the human brain is totally different than what we experience in school. So the outcome and the experiences will be different as well. And it's a conversation. Like I mentioned earlier, my youngest went through 4 different types of school because I'm that parent that's going to find the right fit. Because what we had wasn't working as he developed.
Mm-hmm.
Developmentally, children go through different changes, and sometimes what used to work didn't work, and you'll see it's a fluctuation. Sometimes you'll do it one way and then you have to change because of whatever reason, and that is
Right.
a conversation. That's why this is a community event, because the conversation has to be ongoing. There is no better than, there is no this isn't good. It is based on the needs of the child.
And education is just such an important part of life, and where you're educated and the quality of the education you receive, it is such a high predictor of what your future is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And you just can't, I don't think as a parent in good faith, you don't want to just chance it. And especially, I think, like you said, like I'm a public school girly too, it was fine for us, it worked out. But if you have children with different needs,
Mm-hmm.
or even, it might not even be like an IEP or 504, it might be social, you
Mm-hmm.
know, it
Mm-hmm.
might be something like
Mm-hmm.
that, like social dynamics, anything. There are all types of reasons where a child just might need to be someplace different than what their traditional zone school is. And they might need to be in another environment because that's just what's best for them, physically, mentally, emotionally, because there is a lot tied to it. But I again, I just I that about school choice. It's a film. There are some films that you're going to be showing at the historical Douglas Theater, and I would like you to explain that because I think this conversation just is leading right on into that.
Right. So I'm super excited to be hosting this as part of our school choice conversation. And we are so lucky. Publica, which is an investigative news outlet, did a documentary about 2 years ago on the Macon family on school choice. And some of it was filmed at the Tubman. It is available on YouTube, but it's 12 minutes. It's not that long. And so we're going to start with that because that's a local story.
And
Um,
what's the name of the documentary?
it's called Zoe and Cookie. And we have invited the family to come be a part of that conversation. But we're
Amazing.
going to watch it with eyes on Macon. And the stance on ProPublica, which is, outside of our area, is why are there so many private schools in this
In such a small
smallish
community.
town? So the documentary does talk about segregation academies and what happened when Bibb County Public Schools were desegregated and you had private schools pop up, to get access. And I think what happens too as a parent, why I'm so passionate, is because when you have a disabled child, they, in addition to the segregation academies traditional space, they're doubly and that is the minimum discriminated against, because now we're talking about disability, and
Right.
traditional schools in general are not always interested in inclusive models when we're going beyond race, to different ways that brains work. The traditional norm is the status quo. And so
Neurodivergence. And I mean,
yeah.
and I want to tap into this because again, that's like the main thing with my platform. That's why it is the Twice Exceptional Mom, because it's very frustrating at times to have a child that has an ASD diagnosis, and then people treat him like he does not have a functioning brain. My son is extremely bright,
Yeah.
and some people will treat him like he's not smart, but other people pay attention and they're like, oh, he's really smart, he really knows this, like he has straight A's. But because of different things in his personality, he's perceived, very much as other at times, or being treated like he's not intelligent at times, and that's frustrating. And I think that is a big part too about when we're talking about school choice is like, are you putting your child in an environment with adults that can see your child for who he or she is and the potential within?
Right.
Because I'll just, I don't, I mean, we're educators, but part of our job is to see the potential in all of them. That is a big core of what we're doing. And that's environmental. They need to be in an environment where people see them as having the capability to succeed.
Well, that's why we picked the movie we did. The two movies, it's a double feature. And so the second one is Left Behind, and it talks about these mothers in New York City that had to push the New York City public school system to be inclusive and to change their teaching for another disability, dyslexia, and make it accessible at the public school level to students who are struggling because they saw the connection between in the documentary. They're very blunt about it, dyslexia in prison. So that's what we talk about, the prison pipeline.
Isn't it
Um,
about 70% of inmates, aren't they dyslexic?
and then they,
And about, I think the statistics are that 20 to 30% of the population is dyslexic.
and so you'll see the state of Georgia making some amends, some recognition, some screeners. But the way in which children who are dyslexic and the way in which children who have dyslexic characteristics, because you don't, just because every child who has reading difficulty is not dyslexic. And one thing that I learned on this journey is that children who are ADHD have some dyslexic characteristics. It doesn't mean they're dyslexic, but it
Hmm.
has a lot of it has to do with memory and being able to
That
store
working
information
memory.
and sounds in that brain and then regurgitate it and remember what goes with which because of the attentiveness.
Hmm.
So those children as well, get when they get supports and when they get knowledgeable instructors, when they get teachers who understand the human brain, how it sees symbols, which is reading, and they can work with them on rectifying it, you have outcomes. So it's really about the documentaries are both about parent power. They're about the parents demanding from their communities, asking for, partnering with, being vocal about, working with, questioning what's necessary for their children to be successful and productive people in society. And so it's a very empowering night. It's not about, I picked two stories. One's in Macon, and one's about disability in New York City, because it's not a local issue. This is national.
Right.
I mean, I would even say worldwide, but this is a time, we want to invite the community to come out and to consider some things, to consider what's going on and what we can do to be proactive and supportive and knowledgeable, and what trainings we might need to go back and get to support the children coming up to make sure that they're successful, because we have the data on what happens when we don't. Mm-hmm.
Right. Prison to pipe, I mean, the school to prison pipeline is
Mm-hmm.
very real. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a big part of that
Yeah.
is people not learning how to read
Mm-hmm.
and being pushed on and pushed on.
Mm-hmm.
And then they cannot be successful adults in society. So you got to make the money somehow.
So that's why we have some, certified teachers in Orton Gillingham, which is the gold standard for dyslexia remediation, who will be at the fair. And we do have some private tutors in the area who will be there.
That's awesome. So again, the movie event, it sounds amazing, and I know you have other things planned, and it's a labor of love. Um, I think I've probably already gotten your answer for that question I was going to ask, but talk to me a little bit more about, so that's the movie viewing. Talk to me more about the big show, about the school choice fair. Like if I walk into the Tubman Museum and I'm looking around like what will I see here? What's my sensory overload going to consist of? I'm ready for it.
Well, we're tying up some last minute situations going on just with the entertainment piece, but you will have student performances. We're open to performances. That's what gets the parents in. It's really about community down on the first floor. You'll have people greeting you. You'll have a map to show you the organizations that will be there, to talk to them. They'll have their table set up and ready to talk to you. For the National School Awareness Foundation, their mascot is an owl. So his name is what is his name? can't remember his name right now, Albert. And he will be there taking pictures with families and children. Upstairs, you will have vendors that go around the atrium there to talk to them about their schools, come with your questions. We'll have a tutor cafe where you can meet with individual tutors who are experts in their area and ask them, what services they offer, getting ready for summer, right? We don't want that summer slide to
Yes.
happen. We do have a
I still
documentary.
don't know why we're not in year-round school. Like as a teacher, like I'm just like, just move to year-round because they forget so much. The
Yeah.
summer slide is so real.
So we will have people there in person to talk to you and make those type of arrangements. We'll have a documentary room upstairs. We'll be watching Zoe and Cookie about 5 times. It's a 12-minute film. If you didn't see it, having those type of discussions because we really want to support that Macon story and to have that
Yes.
family here who did the work. They're in the work. And then we'll have what's called the STEAM lab, which are schools who have something to do with science, technology, engineering, the arts, and math, and they will have hands-on learning. We have a little pit on the side for them if they're doing robotics, but it's hands-on. The idea is that parents go up there and they're able to talk and engage and play with their gadgets, build something with Legos, whatever hands-on
Yeah.
activity they have, it's interactive. And then downstairs we have a family photo op, so if families were not able to come to our event where we had free family event, we still have the same thing downstairs. We have the Albert's Nest, which is activities for the younger kids. We do have our legacy project back there. So we do ask parents to come downstairs and make our quilt patch. And the question is, what does a awesome school look like? And it could be words, it can be pictures, but we'll sew them all together to have a quilt. We'll have a reading rug available for kids to be read to. And then we have some other activities that the National School Choice Awareness Foundation sent us for the kids coloring. Sometimes these type of events for younger kids could be boring to them. So we do have a room where they can go and color and, do some age appropriate things. And then we do have a men's meeting that is hosted by Faith in Action Men's Group. And they start at 1 to 2 and they'll be on the bottom floor and they're asking, men in the community who are vested in their children's, education to come to the fair and then meet with them from 1 to 2 at the end of the fair. So it's pretty much, for everybody. It's open. There's activities. It is
And
a
are you
community
still
event.
taking volunteers to assist with
Yes,
this?
we still
And if
have
they,
volunteers.
yes, so they're welcome to contact either you or
Yes,
I if
yes,
they want to volunteer,
mm-hmm.
take the
Yes,
people.
yes, definitely. And that's what it looks like. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love it. I'm so excited. I just can imagine my kids like walking through and, you know, going and seeing all the different things. I know my son's going to be excited about the STEM room and probably the reading, everything like that. Because I mean, for me as a parent, definitely school choice. I've taught at a magnet school before. My daughter attended magnet for you talk about student choices. My child attended a private school, 3K, 4K, half a kindergarten, switched to public school, went to a regular public school and a magnet school, and
Mm-hmm.
it's magnet school for middle school.
Right.
And I mean, we are definitely enjoying that as our school choice. We're very happy with our middle school for our
Mm-hmm.
child. A little bit about your background because I know it's definitely a labor of love, but what are your biggest inspirations and motivations for providing all these resources for Middle Georgia families and doing it at no cost? Doing it at no cost, all these things for people in our community.
Um, I think I mean it's so many things, right? I had a fantastic public school. Team and it fit me just fine. But um I looked at the curriculum. We had German, we had Chinese, we had all these things, and and then when I had my children and came to the community, I have twice exceptional children, and they fit in no box. They fit in no box. There's no box.
They allow it for the people in the back.
No
Yeah.
box. Every box you put them in, it's not going to work. So I
Right.
was always running on edge and trying to figure this out and put this together. And then I started talking to parents. I'm like, you're not doing this? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, you don't have to? No. And well, they're not bored? No. And but you didn't put them in, no. So I found that what I was doing, all these resources, all this information was useful because there are things that people hadn't considered. They had some of the same problems, they just didn't have anybody to say, hey, you might want to do this, or have you thought about this? So I just really wanted to be a resource, so no one had to go through what I had to go through.
Because it's a lot.
It's
We
a
go through a lot.
lot. It's a lot.
I almost want to say like it's a little traumatic, but you learn on your feet, and
Yeah.
you just got to keep going. And I,
Yeah.
again, I just had to be so transparent to say I'm just so thankful for you, and us being able to connect, because it definitely is a lonely place.
Yeah.
It can be a lonely place,
Yeah.
having a child with exceptional needs, and then also them being having exceptional needs and then being really really bright.
Yeah.
It's just a, like you said, no box. There's no box for us, so we're building our own little little by little in the back.
Yep.
So. I love it. I think you said, well, who do you think would most benefit from attending the school choice fair?
I think anybody interested in our community, because the children become the adults, and you need to know, what's going on and what's needed and what's lacking and what needs supports. And also to share with your communities like all the things that we're doing well. I mean, this is a celebration. Again, there is no better than worse. That's not what this fair is about. It is about celebrating for us to be the size that we are. There's so much choice happening, and there's so many ways in which we're getting it right, and there's so much to be thankful for, and there's so much going on that people don't know about. Like, you hear about like, what, we're doing this. So that's really, it's a celebration, and it's also educational, because I believe anybody who comes is going to walk away with at least one thing. I didn't know that. I didn't know this existed in my community. I had no idea that I could do that. I didn't know they had that after school program, as opposed to this school versus that school. That is not the energy. Everybody that's coming is excited. They want to be there. Some asked to be there. Some, after they're invited, they signed up right away. And they want to be there to celebrate. That's why it's Middle Georgia. That's why it's regional. All the amazing things that we're doing in the community, and we're doing well. Is there room for improvement? Always. We're humans. Schools are made out of humans. So it's going to be imperfect because it's people doing it, whether it's homeschool, it doesn't matter, private school, public school. We're humans, and there's always room for improvement. But we're doing some amazing things, talking to some of the, school leaders, founders, a lot of inspiration and a lot of support. Sometimes as parents, you don't have time during the week to go make an appointment, with the leader of your school or the school you're interested in. There's not enough time. So this is a time too for parents who are
The
curious.
networking event, and to get a vibe. And I know that sounds like so common to say get a vibe, but you get a vibe about like people your kids around, and what kind of energy they will be bringing to your child's education. Because like, even though I'm gonna plug a school, I'm gonna do it. Even though my child's not in a micro school, I just love the way Latoya Nelson talks about Attune. I love how she's running Attune. I have so much respect for her, and I referred one of my sorority sisters to her. She sent her granddaughter over there, and she's just been like, she doesn't want to leave when she has to go to high school. She wants to be at it forever. She wants that to be her teacher long term, and it's a vibe because like the first time I heard her talk at an event last year, when we were meeting people and talking about micro schools where I first met you, and I got to hear her talk about the school, and she just was so passionate about it. And I mean, educators know, like, it's there's some of us that are in it. It is just a job, and
Mm-hmm.
there are some of us who are in it, and it's a passion, it's a ministry, it's a calling, and Latoya is one of those people. And I don't I don't think that, like you said, people oftentimes have the opportunity to meet and talk to people to really get to see like them living out the mission for the school that they're running. But when I see Latoya, and I see what's going on there, even though that's not my child's school, I it's big things happening. And I think that you giving people the opportunity to talk to her. And what are some of the other vendors and schools that have signed up to be there that people can be looking out for so they can see if they can catch a vibe too?
Right. So I will say to join our Facebook page. We do have a Facebook page for the fair. It's facebook.com/Middle Georgia School Choice Fair. And we shout out all of the vendors, schools, and organizations. But the Attuned Community School, like you mentioned, this is their second year coming back there with us last year, first year. They'll also be hosting a talk on workshop on opening a microschool just to have more options in the community. So
A micro school.
microschools. So please,
Mhm.
check that out. That'll be on Facebook. Another school that will be there is one of the charter schools, the Ubuntu Leadership Institute, that's trying to open up as a charter school in 2028. They'll also be
Are they trying to open in Macon or Houston
in
or
Macon,
in
in
Macon?
Macon,
Okay.
Georgia, fall 2028, and they'll also be one of the featured project charter schools at a talk hosted by the Georgia School Charter School Association that's happening at Middle Georgia State University, and that is on our events list for the dates for that. So that'll be they're coming as well. We have St. Andrew's Montessori, which is a private school located in Macon, the Montessori approach for younger students. This will be their first year. They're coming. I did mention the tutors. We have an awesome tutoring center downtown Macon, and they will be there. This is our first year. They use Orton Gillingham. They have an office. A lot of parents do not know. When I found it, I reached out immediately and said, please come, because parents, it's summertime coming, need to have
Yes.
people who are trained in remediation for dyslexia. We have Mount DeSales. Mount DeSales will be there as well. That is a private school located downtown Macon, Georgia. They are partnering with us and coming to talk to parents about what they offer. Some of the non-school vendors like Bibb County Recreational will be there. That's one. They have after school programs. They have a push initiative. They have education on crossing the street because of our high rate of mortalities in our area for people who walk. And we do have children who walk
Yep.
to school. So
Pedestrian safety is important.
exactly, it's very safe. So they'll be talking about that. We do have Burdell Hunt Elementary, which is a magnet school in Bibb County. They'll be coming. They're a communication arts school. So this is their first year coming to talk to parents. And that is a school where you have to apply. It's a public school, but you do have to apply.
And they
Um,
also have a very dynamic principal, Miss Tanya Allen, loves all her babies.
yeah. So, those are just off the top of my head, the ones that I can think about. We do have Miss April Kelly Neal, the special was
My
it
friend.
disability attorney, who's going to come and talk to parents with their concerns, how can they support what's needed, because a lot of times parents just don't know. And so it's a plethora of organizations that are there. We have some summer camps coming, getting ready for
Are
summer.
any of them going to be like summer camps that focus on like children with autism and ASD? Because a lot of times I know we have sometimes have difficulty finding camps for our kids, especially if they're elopers and they leave the area. They need a little bit.
So, what you're going to find in our area at this time is there is a lack of a pipeline for that.
Yeah.
Um, that is why we have the conversations for micro schools to start to tell. We've invited some of the education departments in our area and the colleges to come out to consider special education, you know, our needs in the summertime. This is what happens, is what we need people trained in. So you will have a couple, one or two, I think, that are coming that are very open and trained. The Attuned Community School, as you know, is a
Yeah.
micro school for kids with disabilities. They have a summer program. So they've been asked to bring their summer programming with them so that you can, find out some environments that are available. And then we will also, upon registration, have a resource list that we're compiling to give to all parents that enter information about specifically for disabled children, camps and communities where they can go. That's not necessarily a vendor, but it's on the registration when parents
And I
come.
need that list.
Yes.
I need
And the
that list
first
right now.
100 parents, they do get a gift from the National
I'll be number
School
one.
Choice awareness. So come out. They do have some a free gift for you that we'll be passing out. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, I'm excited. I feel like you answered a lot of questions. I know you had some other events
Yes.
that you're doing, and I don't really know how you're making all this happen, but you making it happen. You just like, what is I Dream of Genie? Just like you just making it happen.
No, definitely not. Definitely not that. It's the work. And I do want to shout out one of our activities that I'm not most proud of, but that's the newest. And we're doing a conversation online in Spanish about school choice. So
I
we are
love
trying
that.
to incorporate the Spanish speaking community, especially with the
Yes.
political climate now, people not always feeling safe
Yes.
to leave their homes, and talking about what their choices are and what that looks like for them. So we are encouraging, if you are, connected to the Middle Georgia, and I mean, it's online, so it's pretty much open, to the whole state, to come online and just hear about what that looks like. The National School Choice Foundation has a wonderful website called what is it called? Opciones, and it is online. So they can always look at that. It's all in Spanish, but we're trying to reach out to the community and let them know what's available.
I'm excited, and I think you've got a lot of
Opciones
information.
escolares. Mm-hmm.
Um, do you want to share like the breakdown, like the day to day for like so people can go ahead. Like if you're listening right now, you don't have your planner out, this is the time. Get the planner, pull it out, get the
Yes.
calendar, open up the calendar app on
Right.
your phone. She's going to tell you all these different things that she's been working on that you would benefit from.
And then also, if you don't have it out or you're driving, our main website for the event is www.middlegeorgiaschoolchoice.com. It's all listed there. But
And
it's
is the
like,
word Georgia spelled out or is
yes,
it GA? So,
Middle Georgia,
okay.
Georgia.
All right.
So we're opening on January 25th. We're having an opening youth service at 9 o'clock at Universal Light Christian Center because they have their own tutoring program that is open to the community where they work with Mercer University students to tutor students. So they are already a church in our community doing the work. So we will open up with them. On Monday, January 26th, we will have a Microschool class online to talk to educational entrepreneurs, people considering, and those who have their own microschools to talk about the process. So it's a community conversation, it's all free. That Tuesday, we will have Las Opciones Escolares in Georgia Central.
I love hearing you speak Spanish. Get them, girl. Get them.
A las 5 hasta las 6 es para los padres hispanohablantes que quieran saber sobre las opciones que tienen en las escuelas, y todo es gratis. January 28th, we will have the conversation about charter schools, how to open a charter school. And that is going to be located at Middle Georgia State University in the Teacher Education Building in room 231 from 6 to 7:30. Everything's free. On Friday, January 30th, we will have free family photos at Glorious Hope from 5:30 to 7. Everything's free.
And that's on, isn't it off of Napier Avenue?
Yes, it's
Mhm.
3805 Napier Avenue, and that's for parents to come out. You have a chance to give your school a shout out. So we'll have some postcards to you to write on why you love your school, and that's any school. We give some love letters, and we're going to send them via social media to the families that come out. And then Saturday, January 31st, online from 11 to 12, we'll have a conversation about strategizing your middle schoolers with their options for school. January 31st, we're going to have an online discussion. It's called Strategizing Your Middle Schoolers Opportunities for Advanced Academics. So this is for your twice exceptional middle schoolers who are sometimes what's called asynchronous. And asynchronous means that all of their development points are on the same level. And that looks like a 12-year-old who can read your college textbook but struggles to tie their shoes. That is being asynchronous. All of the skills development are not on the same page, and that
Right.
is typical in neurodivergent children. So we do have a group of middle schoolers who are academically advanced and who need more to stimulate their minds, but they don't need to be with older kids. That's not appropriate. So
It's a
we're going
lot
to
for them to navigate those dynamics.
exactly. They don't
Yeah.
need, when you see the stories of young kids like 10 years old on college campus and they're the only ones, that's why they have
Yeah.
special programs because they need to be with their like age peers.
They do. They
So we're going to
do.
talk about that. And there's also in that conversation a conversation about a local opportunity this summer for middle schoolers who are advanced to go to summer school camp there. They get lots of academic advanced learning. So that's going to be discussed in that meeting. On Monday, February 2nd, there's going to be another microschool conversation at the Attuned Community School. And that's going to happen at their location in Centerville from 5 to 6. It's open to the community. It's for education students in college. It's for high school students considering being teachers. It's for teachers. It's for retired teachers. It's for community members. And come out and learn. You mentioned her earlier from Latoya Nelson and all of her wisdom in building a pipeline of supports for children who just don't always fit in the box. And then on Tuesday, February 3rd, the Melanated Homeschool Collective, which
And
is
again, you don't have to be melanated to attend the Melanated Homeschool Collective.
no.
Just making sure that people know you, if they're lacking a little melanin, they're still welcome.
So this is hosted by them. It is a community online. And that's from 6:30 to 7:30 because from what I've heard, homeschooling, like you said, can feel very lonely. So some, people want supports to do the homeschooling and see what that looks like and what resources are available in our area. Wednesday, February 4th is what you talked about. That's our Middle Georgia School Choice film series. And we're going to be watching Zoe and Cookie and Left Behind and having a discussion about that, totally free. That starts at 6 p.m. at the Douglas. And then on Thursday, February 5th, we're going to be talking about an opportunity for educators in the community to get their Title I Educational Leadership Certificate for free. And so we're going to have people from the program talking to us about that opportunity. And then on Saturday, February 7th, is the Middle Georgia School Choice Fair for Transformative Education located at the Tubman from 11 to 2. And then the King's Table Men's Ministry meeting open to all the fathers, grandfathers, sons, also at the Tubman, and they'll close us out from 1 to 2.
So I just want to do this for you. That's a mouthful and it's action packed, but it's definitely all needed and you're getting it done. I'm really, really excited. I'm excited to be able to attend. I'm excited to be able to assist. Again, we're still taking volunteers if needed for the day of the event for the Tubman. But I know a lot of times people wait till the last minute to say, okay, I'm free. But I just think everything is going to be really amazing. There's going to be a lot of information. I think a lot of people are going to have those moments where they remember that they are a seen and valued member of our community, and not only for the parents, but also especially for their children, regardless of any perceived differences they may have. Um, I think it's great. And I feel sorry for the people who aren't in Middle Georgia because they only getting like what you say they getting like one little week or whatever. You got like 2 weeks going and got events going bam, 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 bam you have events for the kids, events for the parents, events for educators. You've covered the whole gamut. I think the only thing you could really do next year, honestly. I'm very grateful for your time. I don't want to forget anything. Before we go, I want you to make sure you explain your organization that you're doing this through your LLC, the Rising Scholars Collective, and those types of things. And so other events that you'll have coming up in the future so people can follow you, support you physically as well as online.
Yes. So I do have an organization, and this is the organization that won a grant, and that is what is paying for and supporting our school choice. And the other 12 events, we have 13 events for this.
That's
Okay.
a lucky number. Lucky number
So
13.
that is the grant writing arm of it to make sure that we have what we need, renting spaces, collaborating. And it's really, again, as I mentioned earlier, born out of necessity for my twice exceptional children. The struggle of finding supports, like you said, summer programs, um, open for our children that are not overwhelming. And I think one thing that parents and caretakers, even teachers and institutions, under utilize when they look at needs for children who are disabled in different areas is that sometimes the environment, once you change the environment, sometimes environmental change is necessary.
Yeah.
Sometimes once you change the environment, some of the high needs, some of the, being overwhelmed goes away. And I say that from experience. Taking my youngest son out of a larger class and putting him in a very small class, night and day, because at his developmental stage he needed smaller, spaces. So we help parents navigate that. I'm very partial to parents, diagnosed and undiagnosed, whose children, like you said earlier, are suffering this. They don't feel good. It erodes their confidence. Especially our children with ADHD, especially those who are hyperactive, because ADHD is one of the disabilities that's so common. People tend to devalue it. But I always tell people, and looking at the older generations, and older by I mean over 25, you might have an uncle, neighbor, a parent, and they're usually called can't get right. You
Ah.
know, can't get it together,
Yeah.
and you're just like, what is the issue? You are brilliant. You do mathematical
I
calculations.
think a lot of people, especially like, I'm just going to tell it like in the Black community, like especially like reduce it to laziness,
No, but it's
um,
more than that. It's
or lack of
education because
drive,
it's like
or
so prevalent that people downplay it. So
yeah,
you might have an aunt who can sew without, she doesn't have to make a pattern. She just looks
yeah,
at you and magically her mind does that. But she's living with your grandmother because she can't keep a job and she can't keep,
yeah,
like, just those are called executive
executive
functioning skills
functions,
are
yeah,
overwhelming. And they went undiagnosed their whole life. So when you have a new generation, right, that's showing the signs, the school's telling you that, it's like, well, that's not a big deal. I had that same issue and I'm fine. But the world these children are having to come up in, the
it's
compete for
very different,
jobs, is not the same as it was in the older generations who grew up in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. The demands weren't there. So I'm very much, when I talk to parents, an advocate for, please get your child assessed and please get them the supports they need. And supports will look differently. You'll have children with disabilities and they'll function in traditional schools. You'll have them and they won't function. I mean, it's so individualized. And so I tell parents all the time, what worked for you doesn't mean it's going to work for your child. And there's nothing, I
right?
think, with the English language, there's a bias when we talk about disabilities. What's wrong with him? Whereas other
Yes.
languages, for Spanish, for example, it's what's going on, what's
Mm-hmm.
happening. This
Que
is more
pasa?
neutral, right? Like, what's going on with this person? It's not like what's wrong. So I think the shame and the guilt comes in because of the labeling. You'll hear parents say, I don't want my child labeled, but your child's already labeled.
But I want to add to that too. Not only is your child already labeled, what I tell parents when I'm like that, if I'm teaching their child and they're trying to get what they need the label to get the support. If you don't get the label, you don't get the support, period, point blank. And your baby is going to continue to have the same issues and continue to not have certain things they may need, like us, like you said, small group,
Yeah,
pull out,
yeah,
extended time, all the stuff that could be like the difference between a C and a B or a B and an A. Your child is missing it because you are refusing the label,
yeah.
but the label gets you what you need.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And that's part of, this fair. And I know that we are joining forces for another fair for in
What,
April
whatever are you speaking of?
to directly support our
Yes,
children who are
autistic
autistic in
children.
the area because it's necessary. So there will be some of the same vendors, hopefully, to be repeated in April, just to give parents of children who are disabled an opportunity, who are autistic, an opportunity to have resources and have these conversations conversations with them and have, speakers that speak to them. But our community is growing. It is thriving with these type of initiatives. It's fulfilling a need. We have a medical,
And we're
school.
supporting one another.
Yeah, and a medical school coming downtown, not downtown Macon, it'll be closer to the north side, for adults with disabilities. So we are in transformation, we are in change. There's some
Yes.
good things coming down the pipeline. And so this fair is really just to encourage that and to get what we talked about earlier, the idea that school choices, everybody's running from public school. No, that's not it at all. That's definitely not it. And children will go back and forth, parents will come to their public schools. That is a need, but some students need more as far as like reading support. Some students need their own private reading tutor
And
to
more teacher attention that you can't
they
get in a
need
room
it,
of 30. You can't get it in, I mean, one teacher
right,
in a room with
right,
30
right,
kids, you're not going to get the same thing as one teacher in a room of
right.
20 or 10 or
Yeah.
less. It's just
So
not possible.
and so we want to highlight that. We want to highlight the good things and we want to provide the wraparound supports for getting ready for summer, bringing out these tutors and having them educate what parents can do. Like, sometimes tutoring is not in the budget, it's just not. But there's also educational pieces of where parents can go to get these type of resources and supports and what's out here in this community. So that's what we're really trying to do is just educate, support, highlight, and celebrate all the good things, all the opportunities that are available here in Middle Georgia for our children because they will become the adults and they deserve
Yes.
everything. They deserve everything good.
They do, and we're going to need them to be highly intelligent and capable because we're going to need doctors and
Yep.
nurses
Yep.
and future teachers and all
Yep.
these types of things as we get older. Um, and I do want to say, I will say thank you for mentioning the Autism Awareness Fair that I'm hosting at St. Peter Claver in the Catherine Drexel Center on April 25th from 10 to 1. And I know you're going to help me out with that.
Of
And
course.
I'm very excited um, because I do think it's just people just don't understand, and we're going to make sure that people leave there having an understanding of a better understanding of autism and a better understanding of what supports their children need if they have an ASD diagnosis and who they can talk to and get them and have some people out there to provide some of those things. But I just thank you for community and for making sure that our babies are not slipping through the cracks and they're going to get what they need and we're going to you're going to make sure that everybody's at the table and they have opportunities. So I'm excited for that. So don't leave Middle Georgia. Keep doing your school choice fair. Keep doing bigger and better things. And I know, I mean, you're just going to. I'm just grateful. And so again, everybody, let me make sure I just love your name. Farron Slayton Barkley. Farron Slayton Barkley, PhD. She is going to make sure our children in Middle Georgia are seen and well taken care of. And I'm excited about this school choice fair, about the movie showing, about the teacher leadership cohort, the Spanish speaking, all the things that you're offering to everybody in the community, and it's much needed. So if you're watching and you did what I told you to do, which was get your calendar and get your phone and put those dates in, or if you didn't, you can share it or rewatch it to invite your friends. This is for the community. Everything is free of cost. Let's show Farron how much we appreciate her work and how much she cares for our kids in the community. And let's make sure that the families that we know, especially who are in need of this information, that they're aware, spread the word. Let's get out there. Let's support Farron. Let's support school choice in Middle Georgia.